Hello students, welcome back. We are discussing about the interspecific interactions. So we had talked about the interspecific interactions. I'll just write it down. And in this interspecific interactions, we had already discussed about the two types. We had talked about the competition and we had discussed about predation. Now, the third type of interspecific interactions is called symbiosis. So, I'll just write it down. It's called symbiosis. Now, what do you mean by symbiosis? Symbiosis means that it is an interaction between two organisms which are associated in very closely. That means the interaction between two organisms which are associated very closely. That means the organisms, they stay with each other normally. It is a very simple way to explain symbiosis. It's an association, it's an interaction between two organisms which are of two different species and they stay with each other. You can say that in very simple terms. Now, symbiosis can be of generally three types. So, these interspecific interactions are competition, predation and symbiosis. Symbiosis can, again, we can say that it is generally of three types. So, the first type of symbiosis is called mutualism. It's called mutualism. We'll talk about this. The second type of symbiosis which we will discuss is called commensalism. And then we will come to our important topic, which is the parasitism. Now, these are the three types of symbiosis behavior or symbiotic behavior, the mutualism, then we have commensalism and then we have parasitism. Now, with this, I will also explain a very one more type of association or one more type of interactions which is called amensalism. So, in this lecture, we will discuss about mutualism, commensalism and introduction to parasitism. What is parasitism? I will explain that and then I'll talk about amensalism. So, let's start with this lecture now. I will first discuss about mutualism. Okay, now let me explain what is mutualism. Now, what I have said that mutualism, commensalism and parasitisms are interspecific interactions. That means what? There is involvement of two different species. So, first let me write down the two species. Let us imagine this is species A and the species B. Two different species are there. Now, what is mutualism? Mutualism is a type of interaction, is a type of interspecific interaction where both the species are getting benefited. Remember this, in what competition we have said that neither of the species is getting benefited. In predation we have said only one of the species is getting benefited. In mutualism, it's a type of interspecific interaction where the interaction results in the benefit of both the species. Now, let me give an example so it will be clear. Look at this picture. You can see there is a flower and a bee is actually feeding on it. So, from this picture, what you can understand? Obviously, the bee is feeding on the nectar, so it is beneficial for the bee. Now, how it is beneficial for the flower? It is beneficial for the flower is by that after feeding on from one flower to the other flower, the bee hops around from one flower to the other. So it helps in pollination. So you can see in this type of interaction, two different species are involved. One is the bee, one is the flower. And how both the species is getting benefited? One is getting the food and other is getting the help in pollination. So both the species are getting benefited. So this is an example of mutualism. Now let me give one more example of mutualism where both the species is getting benefited. And this is a very nice example of mutualism. Look at this. These are termites. Termites are those organisms you will find in old furnitures, old wooden furnitures are there. This termite, they feed on the woods. They feed on the wood. They bite, they chew up the wood and they feed the wood particles. You have seen these termites. Now, what happens is that these termites can chew up the wood, but they don't have any enzyme to digest that wood, or they don't have any enzyme to digest the cellulose which is present in the wood. So what happens is that they can chew up the wood, but they don't have any enzyme to digest it. Now, what helps them in doing this? These are some protozoans. These protozoans are present inside the digestive system of the termites. So these protozoans, remember, they are present inside the body, inside the digestive system of the termites. Now, termites chew up the wood. So the cellulose is there in the wood, it goes inside the digestive system. These protozoans can release the enzymes. They have the enzymes to digest the cellulose. So these protozoans release the enzymes and they digest the cellulose. So after digestion, which nutrient is present, both the protozoans get some nutrients, take some nutrients, and rest of the nutrient is taken up by the termites. So both are beneficial. Now you can say that how these protozoans are benefited, termites are benefited. We can understand that they don't have the enzyme, protozoans release the enzymes and it digests the cellulose. But how the protozoans is getting benefited? See, protozoans cannot come out and take or chew up the wood. They are present inside the body. So they need some source of food. From where the protozoans is getting the source of food? As the termites is chewing up the wood, that wood particle is going in the digestive system so that the protozoan get a source. So they digest that and the nutrients is actually shared. The protozoans take some nutrients, the termites get the nutrients. So both of them are getting benefited. So these are the example of mutualism. Mutualism means what? That it's a type of interaction where both the interacting species is getting benefited. So if both the interacting species is getting benefited, how can we depict mutualism? We have to depict mutualism by plus oblique plus. For competition it was minus oblique minus. For predation it was plus oblique minus. For mutualism it's plus oblique plus. That means what? Both the species is getting benefited. So I hope you have understood what is mutualism. Now let us talk about the next type of interaction, which is commensalism. Okay, now let us discuss about commensalism. Again, this is an interspecific interaction. That means two different species are involved. So again, let me write down. Let us assume these two are the two different species. Species A and species B. Now, what is commensalism? It is a type of interaction where one of the interacting species is getting benefited and the other species is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed. Again, listen carefully. It is a type of interspecific interaction where one of the interacting species is getting benefited and the other interacting species is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed. So, for example, if suppose these are the two species and only species A is getting benefited, species B is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed. So first I will give a very simple example. So let us assume this is a tree. This is a tree and these are the branches. Let us say these are the branches of a tree. And on the branch of a tree, a bird builds a nest. So on the branch of a tree, there is a nest which is built by the bird. Now tell me which type of interaction is it? Bird is building a nest on the tree, so bird is getting the shelter. That means what? It is the bird is getting benefited, right? But the nest in the tree does not bother the tree itself, because the bird is building its nest, bird is getting benefited, but that it does not matter to the tree. The tree is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed by the nest itself. So it's a type of commensalism. So for this interacting species, you can say that species A is the bird and the bird gets benefited, species B is the tree, and you can say tree is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed. I'll give one more example. Look at this picture. In this picture, you can see there is a shark, and along with the shark there are some fishes. These fishes are called pilot fish or pilot fishes. These are called pilot fishes. Now what happens is that this pilot fishes stays with the shark itself in the water. So whenever the shark, it kills its prey, because shark is a predator, it kills small fishes, so it kills its prey. So while eating, while killing, some of the meat pieces may be thrown here and there in the water, because while killing the prey, some pieces of the food or the pieces of the meat may be thrown here and there in the water. These pilot fishes, it feeds on those extra meat pieces, which after the shark eats its prey, the small pieces are here and there in the water. This pilot fishes, it eats those pieces of meat. So what is happening over here? The pilot fishes is getting benefited. It is getting its own food. It's getting its food. But the presence of the pilot fish does not bother the shark. So it's a type of commensalism. Means what? The pilot fishes is getting benefited, but it does not bother the shark itself. The shark is neither getting benefited nor it is getting harmed. So you can find there are many examples of commensalism. I have just given you these two examples. The concept should be clear. The type of interaction where only one of the interacting species gets benefited and the other interacting species neither get benefited nor getting harmed is called commensalism. So how can we depict commensalism? We can depict commensalism by +/0. Why +/0? Plus means only one. This plus means only one of the species is getting benefited. 0 stands for what? 0 stands for that the other species is neither getting benefited nor getting harmed. If I write minus over here, that means the other species is getting harmed. If I write plus over here in the place of 0, that means the other species is getting benefited. But in commensalism, only one of the species gets benefited. The other species does not get benefited nor it get harmed. So we will write 0 over here. So +/0 is the sign of commensalism. I hope this part is clear to you. Now I will explain one very interesting type of interaction, which is called amensalism. I just want to explain amensalism over here. Just I am writing over here amensalism. Now what is amensalism? Amensalism is a type of interaction where one of the species is getting harmed and the other interacting species is neither benefiting nor getting harmed. It's just, you can say, the opposite of commensalism. It's just a type of reverse of amensalism, where one of the species is neutral. So first let me write the symbol for it. So one of the species is neutral and other species is getting harmed. Now we have to understand this very carefully. One of the species is getting neutral, it does not bother one of the species, the other species is getting harmed. So one example I will give it to you. I think you have heard of Penicillium. Penicillium is a fungus from where you get penicillin. Now, from penicillium you get penicillin, which is an antibiotic. Means it's a fungus and it releases a chemical on its own. It releases a chemical which is an antibiotic. So the bacterial species which is present near to it, they cannot survive. But it does not help the penicillium by any way. By killing the bacteria around it, it does not help the penicillium in any way. It does not help the penicillium, I can say the penicillium is not getting harmed in any way. So what is happening over here, you can see this picture. You will see that the penicillium is present, this thick white color thing is the penicillium, and you can see the bacteria colonies are not growing around it. There is a small zone, clear zone around this white penicillium. So you can say those are the zone where the bacteria cannot grow. So you can say this type of interactions are there, but that is also a type of interaction which is occurring between organisms, where one of the species is neither getting harmed nor getting, neither getting harmed nor getting benefited, but the other species is getting harmed. So that's a type of interaction which is called amensalism. Although it is very rare we see amensalism, so we rarely talk about amensalism while talking about the interactions between interspecific interactions, but I thought that we should mention this also over here. Okay, so I think you have understood what is commensalism and what is amensalism. Commensalism, one is getting benefited and the other one is neutral. Amensalism, one is neutral and other one is getting harmed. So this type of interactions are also there. Now I will give an introduction to parasitism. Okay, now let me explain in brief the type of symbiotic interaction, interspecific interaction, parasitism, which is our main aim or main focus. In this lecture, I will just give a small overview of parasitism, and in the next lecture, in the next part, I will explain in details what is parasitism. Now let us see about parasitisms. The word parasitism has come from the Latin form of the Greek word parasitos. The meaning of the word parasitos is very unique. It means one who eats at the table of another. Now, remember this sentence. This is very unique to understand what is parasitism. One who eats at the table of another. Now, let me explain this, then you will come to know about what is the meaning of the word parasitos. Now, parasitism, like the other symbiotic interactions, it is also interspecific. That means involvement of two different species, species A and species B. In this type of interactions, one species gets the benefit, the other species is harmed. So species A, suppose let us species A, it benefits, it gets the benefit. Species B is harmed. So one of the species is benefited, the other species is harmed. It is like you can say the other interactions we have talked about, the predator, the predatorship, the predator and its prey. It's like that, but it's little bit different from that predator and prey relationship. It is little bit different from that. We'll explain that in the next lecture, but you have to understand this concept of parasitism. Parasitism means it's a type of, you can say, interspecific interactions where one of the species is benefited, other species is harmed. Now, whenever I say parasitism, remember parasitism is a symbiotic association. Symbiotic means association means what? The two species are closely associated. These two species are closely associated. That means they remain close, in close physical association with each other. In predator and prey, remember predator and prey, over there is no close association. A tiger and a deer is not very closely associated. They live separately. And over there, in their interaction also, one gets benefit and other gets harmed. Over here also, one gets benefited, other is getting harmed. But what's the difference? Over here, these two species, they are residing in a very close physical association. So one is getting benefited, one is getting harmed. I will give you the example, but before that, we should write down our this. How can you denote this parasitism? We have to denote the parasitism is very similar. One is getting benefited, the other is getting harmed. So it will be plus oblique minus. So now I think you have understood this, how to write plus and minus signs. Now let me give an example first. There are different parasites which live inside the human. For example, there is this tapeworm. You have heard these names. There are roundworms. Then we have this malarial parasite Plasmodium, which is living inside our body. So there are many parasites which stay inside us. Now how this different types of parasites gets benefited from us? See, let us give an example. Suppose this tapeworm lives inside the human. They live inside the human. They follow some part of the life cycle is carried on inside our body. They get the nutrients for its survival, and ultimately they survive inside our body. They are getting benefited, but it is causing some problem to us. We are getting harmed. We are not dying. We may die, but we are not directly dying, but it is causing problem to us. So those parasites are getting, you can say those parasites are getting benefited, but we are getting harmed. See, one more example over here. You can see this is a leech. They climb on top of any organisms and they suck the blood. So they are getting the food by sucking the blood, but the organism whose blood they are sucking is getting harmed. So they are the parasites. We'll talk about the different types of parasites. We'll talk about endoparasites, we'll talk about ectoparasites, and we'll talk about parasitism in details. But this was just to give you an introduction to parasitism. You should understand what is parasitism. So I hope you have understood now what is parasitism. And remember this sentence, one who eats at the table of other. That means what? That means that they are not having any food for themselves. They eat some other person's food. That is parasitism. Those parasites, they don't have their own nutrition. They steal some other person's, the nutrition of the organisms they reside in. Are you getting my point? So we'll discuss about parasitism in details in the next lecture, and I hope at that time it will be clear to you if you have any doubt over here. Now, just I want to summarize this part of lecture, the introductory part to parasitism, the interactions, by just to remember this. First, we have talked about the first interactions was competition. Competition was denoted by what? It was denoted by minus oblique minus. Both during these interactions, both of the species were harmed, actually, not getting benefited. Now, second, we have talked about predation. In predation, one was getting benefited, other person was getting harmed, the other species was getting harmed. Then today we have talked about, first we have talked about mutualism. In mutualism, what happens? Both the persons or both the species were getting benefited. Then we have talked about what? After mutualism, we have talked about commensalism. In commensalism, what happens? One is getting benefited, the other is neutral, does not get harmed or does not get any benefit. Then I have also mentioned about amensalism. Amensalism is the opposite of, you can say, the commensalism, where one is getting neutral and other is getting harmed. And last is the parasitism, where you can say one species is getting benefited, other is getting harmed. So I think you have understood what is parasitism, competition, predation, mutualism, commensalism and amensalism. So just revise what I have taught you till now, and in the next lecture we will talk about parasitism in details. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you.